So another Asian horror film that I've watched recently is Kairo, or more famously known as Pulse, which was made in 2001 by a guy called, I think it's Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Obviously, very famous second name, but it's not the Kurosawa you're thinking of, obviously. But it was suggested to me by a user called MonkeyTube, who was giving me, some help with, what sort of Asian horror films I should watch. Anyway, so I checked it out, I watched it, and it was a really interesting film. And I don't mean that in a sort of patronising way, like, oh, it was crap. It really genuinely was interesting. The film is, well, the beginning of it is about a group of people who start committing suicide for seemingly no reason, and it seems to be tied to this strange website that asks, do you want to see a ghost, and then it shows you really sort of grainy video footage of people sitting in their houses, but it's very creepy. And people are committing suicide, and the main characters are trying to find out why this is happening. And the two main characters basically have two parallel stories. They don't actually know each other. It cuts between the two stories. It's only towards the end of the film that they actually meet, and it's very strange. The film, if you're a horror fan, I would definitely say watch it. It is scary. There are genuinely some really great moments in it that are really creepy and really sort of make your skin crawl, and you're a bit kind of, maybe a bit taken aback by it. It's beautifully shot. It is really well made. The problem I had with it is that, well, there's a few problems, right? For starters, there's a scene in the middle of the film where you get this sort of exposition where this character kind of almost comes out of nowhere. Just, he's been in one other scene, but he sort of all of a sudden explains what he thinks is happening, and you're supposed to kind of just go with that as the explanation, and it's very, very sort of strange. And the problem with it is, I'm obviously watching subtitles, and you can only go on what the subtitles are showing you. I don't know if something is being lost in translation or not. No pun intended, no movie pun. Another problem with it is that it starts off as a very personal story about these people who, their friends start committing suicide. I should mention then what happens is people just start disappearing, and all that seems to be left is like a sort of smeared black outline of them, like on a wall, like in their flat or somewhere that they've been. And you start to really sort of be like, oh, what the hell's going on? And it starts off as a really personal story, just about a few people, and then all of a sudden it's like just thrown in as if like it's happening everywhere. And you go from a sort of like typical Japanese ghost story to what really feels like a sort of apocalyptic science fiction story. And the switch is really jarring, and it's almost as if it's two films. I mean, I could totally have seen it as like doing two films, like having the first film all be about this small group of people, and then do a sequel that was about what was happening on a larger scale. And I think that was a problem with it. I think that there are some bizarre moments of dialogue, really bizarre moments, and again, I can only go on what the translation is telling me. you know, I can only really go on that, but there are moments where there's a moment on a rooftop where one of the main characters, she's talking to her boss, and her boss just all of a sudden has this really sort of profound moment where it's almost as if he's talking to the camera, about friendship and about what it means to you, and it just comes out of like nowhere, and you're like kind of taken aback by it, you know. It feels very strange. Now, all of that being said, I think my first reaction was the film is a bit of a mess. It's a bit sort of all over the place. And while I think that may be true, after thinking about it a bit more and reading about the film and reading about the director, Kurosawa, Kiyoshi, because I'm probably getting his name wrong, Kurosawa is his second name anyway. Reading about that director, I start to think that there's more to the film. And when I start to think about it, I think, yeah, there probably is. It's probably deliberately meant to be disorientating. And I think do you know the closest thing I can think of comparing it to is, well, it's Solaris. It's probably the closest thing I can compare it to. It feels very much like that. It feels like Solaris, which then doesn't really feel like a horror film, does it? So it's kind of strange. You've got a lot of elements in there. You know, you've got the horror, which seems like the main element, but then it does sort of turn to be science fiction. What the film also at certain points feels a little bit preachy, like maybe a little bit too obvious about what it's trying to say. Now that may just be that I'm, you know, not clever enough to pick up the true meaning, but to me the film seems to be about people using, well, in the beginning using the internet to connect with one another, but really actually we're all at distance and we're all sort of pushing each other away. And that feels like it's the film is like sort of about human beings being disconnected from one another and going to real lengths to disconnect one another from each other. That's what the film seems to be about, but it seems a little bit obvious in the beginning. I think there are more complicated sort of themes in there as the film goes, and it just sort of throws around a lot of ideas, and because of that it does feel very much like it's all over the place. There's a forbidden room. There's like these rooms where the people have sealed off with red tape, and people are told not to go in there, and it never really gets totally explained. I think I know what the rooms are, but I don't want to say because actually, can I say? Yeah, I'm going to say it may be a really, really mild spoiler, and it's just my interpretation of it, but I think the forbidden rooms are the rooms where these people have committed suicide. I think that's possibly what they are. But like I say, I think that it's definitely worth a watch. I think the ending of the film again is sort of tacked on, but it's really strange because all of these criticisms that I've levelled at it still make me think that I still really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. There's loads of stuff that doesn't make sense in it. There's like people just accepting that these things are happening, accepting that they're seeing ghosts and things like that as if they're not out of the ordinary, and there's all sorts of things that I think the director must have been being totally deliberate about, and on repeat viewings you might start to sorry my computer's making strange noises, that you might start to get a sort of real feeling about what the film is about on repeat viewings. And but thank you very much for recommending it, and if anyone else has got other recommendations, please let me know. And let us say it's just a strange film, but one I would definitely return to. So that film is Kairo Pulse. I know there's a remake of it, not so much interested in watching that, but check out the original. Bye.